Oh my God. Oh
Miami
my,
County 911.
oh my God. Somebody broke into my home. Somebody broke into my home and shot my wife. My wife she got 2 shots to her head.
What are you seeing?
That was the voice of Caleb Flynn, pastor, husband, father of 2, on the phone with emergency services at 2:30 in the morning, February 16th, 2025, from a quiet cul-de-sac in Tipp City, Ohio. The story he told was simple. Someone broke in, someone shot his wife, someone disappeared into the night. But here's the thing. What police found when they walked through that door did not match the story being told on that phone, not even close. And what the FBI recovered from his phone in the days that followed would turn this entire town inside out. Something wasn't right. Let's give a quick shout out to our subscriber of yesterday, Linda Reed 2932. You opened the file. You stayed. You do not know how important that is.
Sir, I just want to take care of my daughters. I'm not at risk.
Before we go any further, you need to understand who these people were, or at least who they appeared to be. Ashley Flynn, 37 years old, born and raised in Tipp City, a school teacher, a substitute in the public system, and a 7th grade volleyball coach. The kind of woman whose students did not just remember her, they wanted to be her. One former player, a girl named Jocelyn Frost, said Ashley's smile warmed up the room, said she didn't just teach volleyball, she taught her how to be a better person. Ashley volunteered at her church. She was active in her community. Her pastor called her one of the kindest souls to ever walk through those doors. And from everything the record shows, that was not an exaggeration. That was who she actually was. Her obituary described her as a shining light of joy. People who knew her said she spent her life pouring into other people, even when things in her own home were getting heavier, even when something behind closed doors was pulling her apart. Now, her husband, Caleb Flynn, 39, a worship leader at their church, a musician, the man who led the congregation in song every Sunday morning, standing at the front of the room, Bible in one hand, microphone in the other. He and Ashley met at Lee University in Tennessee, a private Christian college. They were both devout, both active in ministry, both raising 2 elementary-aged daughters together on a quiet street in a town where nobody locked their doors because nothing ever happened. And in 2013, Caleb auditioned for American Idol, made it onto the show, and during his segment, when producers asked about his life, he looked into the camera and said,
I love my wife more than anything. She is very, very pretty. Just, oof, I love her.
Remember that quote, because the man who said those words is now sitting in a county jail, charged with putting 2 bullets into his wife's head while their daughters slept down the hall. 2 shots. The kids were asleep. It didn't add up. Let's walk through what police found, piece by piece. Officers arrived at the Flynn home shortly after that 911 call. Caleb met them at the door, cooperative, emotional. He let them in and signed consent for them to search the property. They found Ashley in the master bedroom, on the bed, shot in the head, 2 shell casings on the floor. The kids were asleep, both elementary-aged, both in their rooms. Neither one had woken up. Think about that for a second. 2 gunshots inside the house in the dead of night, in a neighborhood so quiet you could hear a car door from 3 blocks away, and 2 little girls did not wake up. Now, Caleb told the dispatcher the intruder came through the garage. The garage door was wide open, he said. There was a side door on the north wall of the house that was also open. But here's where the detectives slowed down. That side door had a large refrigerator pushed against it. Whoever opened that door would have had to shove a full-size refrigerator out of the way to get through. In the garage, there were 2 vehicles. One of them had its center console open. That's where Caleb told officers he kept his handgun, a 9mm. So the story Caleb was asking everyone to believe looked like this. A stranger entered through the garage in the middle of the night, moved a refrigerator, opened a car, found a gun inside the center console, walked through the house, went directly to the master bedroom, shot Ashley twice in the head, then vanished. No trace, no scent for the dogs, no figure on the drones, nothing. Something wasn't right. Now then there were the details from the 911 call itself. Retired NYPD detective David Sarney, who reviewed the recording, pointed to several things that made experienced investigators stop. First, Caleb knew exactly how many times Ashley was shot. He said it clearly on the call. 2 shots to her head. In a dark room, with blood everywhere. In a moment of alleged panic, he counted 2. Second, he did not check on the children. The dispatcher had to ask him multiple times to go see if the girls were okay. He hadn't gone to them. If a stranger just shot your wife and might still be in the house, the first thing a parent does is run to their children. Caleb didn't. Third, he knew the garage door was open. He knew which doors in the house were open. He described the layout of the scene to arriving officers like a man giving a tour, not a man who had just woken up to a gunshot. Fourth, at certain points in the call, he sounded frustrated, not panicked. Frustrated, like a man annoyed at being asked questions. Detective Sarney noted that when your wife is bleeding out in front of you, frustration with a 911 operator is not the emotion that shows. 2 shots, the kids were asleep. Something wasn't right. Do you think that 911 call felt real? Type inside if you think the danger came from inside the house, or outside if you think there's more to this story. For the first 48 hours, the public narrative held. Tipp City's police chief called Ashley's death a burglary gone wrong. Those were his words. The community grabbed onto that, because what else do you hold on to when something this ugly drops into a town this quiet? A GoFundMe went up. Caleb's face was in the family photo at the top. The caption read, "Please pray for her husband and 2 daughters." Over $115,000 poured in. People who knew this couple rallied, people who went to church with them, people who trusted Caleb, who looked at him every Sunday and saw a man of God. One community member posted on Facebook, "Whoever did this, I hope they fry. But that's not what Ashley would want. She'd pray for them. She was that kind of Christian. I'm not there right now." Then the language changed. 2 days after the murder, the police chief called in the FBI, the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, the Miami County Sheriff's Office. When that many agencies descend on a case in a town this small, that already tells you something. And then the chief released a statement. One word in that statement changed everything. He called Ashley's murder targeted, not a burglary, targeted. And then he added something else. He did not believe the public was in danger. Think about that. If a stranger broke into a home and killed a woman and then fled into the night, why would the public not be in danger? Unless the person responsible never left. Unless there was no stranger at all. The word shifted from burglary to targeted, from tragic to investigation, from victim's husband to suspect. It didn't add up, and now the whole town knew it. If you're watching this and you feel like you're reading a case file in real time, that's because you are. This is what Last Seen Files does. One case, one file, every day. If you want to open the next one with us, the subscribe button is right there. No pressure, just more files. This is where the floor drops out. Investigators pulled Caleb Flynn's phone records, and what they found was a trail of communication that ran like a fuse straight up to the moment of Ashley's death. In the hours before the shooting, Caleb was in heavy communication with an unidentified woman. Text messages, encrypted messaging apps. The pattern was clear. As midnight got closer, the messages picked up. More frequent, more urgent. Something was building. But here's the thing. Caleb tried to get rid of the evidence. He deleted messages from his phone, thought they were gone, thought that was the end of it. Digital forensics does not work like that. The FBI recovered every single deleted conversation from a digital trash folder on his device, every message, every timestamp, every word he tried to erase, placed into evidence and entered into the criminal complaint. And those messages didn't just confirm a months-long affair with another woman at the church, a woman named Aaliyah Botner, who served as a worship leader on the same stage where Caleb led praise every Sunday morning, right in front of Ashley. Those messages gave investigators a documented timeline, a clear, irrecoverable record of what was discussed and when. Prosecutors called the deletions what they were: tampering with evidence, an active attempt to destroy the trail. And then there was one text message, sent from Caleb's phone at 12:42 in the morning. 5 words. It's almost done. It's almost done.
Less than 2 hours after that text was sent, Ashley Flynn was dead. Prosecutors argued those 5 words were not casual, not a figure of speech. Whoever received that message already knew what was happening. Whatever had been set in motion was almost finished. This was not a crime of sudden emotion. This was discussed. This was planned. This was communicated. It didn't add up because it was never supposed to add up. It was supposed to look like a burglary. Retired police commander Mike King, host of Profiling Evil, broke this case down in terms of what investigators see again and again in staged domestic homicides. And what he described is a pattern that fits this case almost exactly. He talked about the 3 personas. Every person has them. The public persona, the one that leads the church choir, waves at neighbors, brings soup to the sick. The private persona, the one only a spouse or a close friend ever sees, where the cracks show, where the ugly comes through. And then the secret persona, the one nobody knows about, the one that fantasizes, that plans, that convinces itself it can get away with it. King explained that in cases like this, the suspect often spends weeks, sometimes months, inside the fantasy. They imagine solving the problem. They imagine the aftermath. They imagine becoming the victim, the grieving husband, the single father, the man the community rallies around. And that part matters, because it's exactly what happened here. Within hours of Ashley's death, the community wrapped itself around Caleb. GoFundMe, prayers, defense. But the fantasy always breaks down in the details, because the person consumed by the plan forgets the component parts. They forget that Ring cameras on every door in the neighborhood. They forget that cell towers track where a phone is at 2 in the morning. They forget that deleted texts do not disappear. They forget that a refrigerator moved away from a door tells a different story than a kicked-in lock. King looked at the geography. One main road into that cul-de-sac. A neighborhood blanketed in doorbell cameras. A massive open field behind the house. Police put drones up, used canines, found nothing. No scent, no figure, no trail leading out, because nobody came in from outside. And then there was the gun. Caleb told officers his handgun was kept in the center console of his car in the garage, the same garage where the alleged intruder entered, the same gun allegedly used to kill Ashley. So in this story, a stranger broke in, rumbled through a car, found a weapon, walked upstairs, shot a sleeping woman twice in the head, and left no evidence of ever existing. Something wasn't right, and the investigators knew it from the start. The criminal complaint says it in plain terms. Caleb Flynn tried to lead officers astray by staging the crime scene. What detail stood out to you most? Was it the text message, the refrigerator, the fact that he knew exactly how many shots were fired? Type file open and tell us below. 3 days. That's how long it took from the morning Ashley was found to the moment police made their move. 72 hours. That's all the time that passed between the 911 call and the handcuffs. And in those 72 hours, this town held its breath. People brought food to the Flynn house. People posted prayers on Facebook. People wore black and hugged each other in parking lots and said things like, "I just can't believe it," over and over again, because they genuinely could not. And then the arrest came. Caleb Flynn was booked into the Miami County Jail just after 5 o'clock on a Thursday evening. 1 count of homicide, 2 counts of felonious assault, 2 counts of tampering with evidence. The charges read like a list that didn't belong next to the name of a man who stood at the front of a church every Sunday and told people to love harder. But there it was, in black ink, on a criminal complaint filed in the state of Ohio. He stood before a judge the next morning, quiet, still. When the judge asked if he had anything to say regarding bond, Caleb looked up and said, "Sir, I just want to take care of my daughters. I'm not at risk." That line landed differently depending on who heard it. Some people heard a father, some people heard a performance. And that's the thing about this case. You can't unhear the 911 call. You can't unread the charges. And once those two things sit next to each other in your mind, every word out of his mouth passes through a different filter. The judge set bond at $2 million, cash, not a bail bond, cash. And even if Caleb somehow posted it, the conditions were clear: electronic monitoring, house arrest, and absolutely no contact with his 2 daughters. Not directly, not through a third party, not through a phone call, not through a letter, nothing. Those girls are with family members now. Elementary-aged, young enough to still believe the world makes sense, old enough to know it doesn't anymore. And one community member said something that stopped people in their tracks.
I'm also heartbroken for the daughters, because the daughters didn't just lose a mom, now they've lost a dad too.
That is the line in this case that does not let you go. You can set it down, walk away from it, come back an hour later. It's still sitting there, waiting for you, because there's no way to make it smaller than it is. They went to sleep one night with 2 parents in the house, 2 voices, 2 sets of footsteps in the hallway, and they woke up into something no child should ever have to carry. No mother at the breakfast table, no mother in the bleachers at their games, no mother to call at 3 in the morning when the world gets too heavy to hold alone. And the man who was supposed to be their foundation, the man who was supposed to protect them from exactly this kind of pain, sitting behind bars in a county jail, charged with creating it. Ashley's family released a statement through a friend. They did not do interviews, they did not go on camera. They asked for privacy, and they said what they needed to say in writing. Their hearts were shattered. They believed the arrest was made carefully, not without serious consideration. They had spoken with both local police and federal authorities, and they trusted the process. And they were clinging to their faith, just as Ashley did each and every day. That last part matters, because even in the middle of something this broken, the people closest to Ashley were still reaching for the thing she reached for. That says something about who she was and the kind of roots she left behind. The celebration of life was held at Christian Life Center in Dayton, not the church where Caleb once stood on stage, a different space, a quieter one, a chance for the people who loved Ashley to remember her the right way, not for how she died, for how she lived. A local woman named Sarah Kaler started taking orders for handmade shirts. They said 3 words on the front: "Live like Ashley." Within days, over $2,500 had been raised, all of it going directly to those 2 girls. Strangers reaching out, asking which of Ashley's quotes should go on the fabric. People who had never met this woman, holding her up the only way they knew how, with their hands, their wallets, and 3 words on a t-shirt that meant more than a eulogy ever could. And one community member said something that sat with a lot of people and hasn't really left. It's just sad that Ashley lost her life over something so silly. Silly. That word carries more weight than it should, because at the end of the day, after all the deleted messages and the encrypted apps and the staged crime scene and the 911 call that didn't add up, what was any of this for? What did it accomplish? What problem did it solve? None.
It solved nothing. It only created two little girls without parents, a town without answers, and a Christ-centered family shattered beyond recognition. Here is what we know. Ashley Flynn told her closest friend near the end something that sticks. Her exact words, "I can't anymore. Hear me out." Those are not the words of a woman having a rough week. Those are the words of a woman who had been carrying something for a long time and had finally run out of strength. The people around her heard it, but nobody knew how little time was left. Every Sunday, Caleb stood on that stage, next to the woman he was involved with, leading worship, while Ashley sat in the building, watching, trusting, believing. 2 shots. The kids were asleep. Something wasn't right. And now a preliminary hearing is set. The evidence is being assembled. The defense will argue rush to judgment. The prosecution will point to the phone records, the deleted messages, the staged scene, and those 5 words sent at 12:42 in the morning. At Last Seen Files, we say this every time. The last record is never the full truth. There is always one more layer, one more message, one more detail sitting in a folder that nobody has opened yet. This case is not closed, not for the courts, not for that community, and not for those 2 little girls who are only now beginning to understand what was taken from them. If you are still here, I want to ask you something, and I mean this. When someone you love says they're at their limit, do you stop? Do you really listen? Or do you assume they'll be fine by morning? Type quiet if this one sat with you. This was a Last Seen Files case. If you want to open the next one, subscribe. We put out a new file every day. No fluff, no filler. Just the truth and the questions that come after it. The file stays open.